August 26th, and we are continuing our series of interviews for Shenandoah Library and Museum, and we are on location today. I'm Leslie Van Buskirk, and I'm here with my husband Roger, and we're on location in Maribelle Read's home. She has graciously allowed us to invite ourselves in, perhaps is more how I should say it. And so we're going to get some information from her about her life in the 30s. Maribelle, what we usually do is we just have you introduce yourself and then kind of give us some background about how old you are or how old you might have been in the 30s and your family and the connection to Shenandoah, that sort of thing, and then we can just jump in with some questions.
Well, I'm Maribelle Read, and the time that you're speaking of, I was probably 12 into the teens.
Okay, so you went through high school in the 30s. You graduated in?
36.
In 36, okay. And tell us a little bit about your family, how your family came to be in Shenandoah. Was it a long time? I don't know that either.
Well, they were both born here.
Oh, okay.
And I was too. Mm-hmm. And my father was a pharmacist and had the corner drugstore, which was called Leacock's in Redfield. Mm-hmm. And it's a great place.
Yeah. Still had a soda fountain, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. A wonderful soda fountain, yes.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And had a little lunch counter, not counter, but booths, too.
Oh, okay.
Mm. And a lot of people would meet there for lunch.
And is that the pharmacy that had the little string with the little can on it, and the pharmacist was up
It wasn't a can, but it was
a little bucket
the went back and forth from there to the cash register.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't remember that, surely.
Well, I don't know why I do remember that, or unless someone has told me about
it. They
it.
probably told you about it.
Or something, but I do remember, maybe Roger told me that the pharmacist was up in the
pharmacy was up on the second other landing.
Mezzanine.
And then
yeah, it was fancy stuff. You only saw things like that in Omaha.
That Brandeis.
Yes, at Brandeis.
Yeah, I do remember that.
They had the same thing, right. And they had the ladders, that ran along the side to get the things that were on the top shelf.
On the top shelf.
I remember
Did
that.
you work in the pharmacy? Did you work in the drugstore? No. Plenty of people to do that.
Well, I'm not a pharmacist.
Well, I meant just...
You mean in the drugstore?
Like a soda fountain?
No, I didn't. My sister did, but I guess they never gave me the opportunity. But as you say, during that, I really didn't feel the Depression. Mm-hmm. My parents did, I'm sure, but I didn't. And I think one thing was that all of us were the same. We weren't hurting any more than anybody else. Our parents were all kind of the same, so we didn't feel it.
Yeah. Do you ever remember them speaking about it? Did they ever make any worries in front of you, girls?
Not very much. I know that my sister was going to college, and also Mr. Leacock's had a son who was the same age, so that was really two. Mm-hmm. And my father was appointed to the state pharmacy board, which brought in another salary, which he shared. So both of them got to go to college.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. So he was taken in as a partner with the Leacockses when he, or were they?
No, they started it together.
They started it together. Oh, okay. All right.
The only thing I do remember that one of our class reunions, this chap came back and they had asked her to get up and say things. And he was doing very well at that point, but he said he remembers being so hungry when he went to school. Mm-hmm. No food. Mm-hmm. But you see, we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah. Which is rather unusual. From the interviews that we have conducted, we've discovered that most of the people we've spoken with were farm families.
Farms.
And they never went
hungry.
without food.
No.
It was
That's
just
true.
a situation that was
They
fortunate
raised
for
their
them.
own
That's what they had.
products.
Yeah,
They
yeah, they had
raised.
everything. But probably with your father's business, it was a different situation.
I think there was sort of I remember going to a dentist, and my father said, well, you must go to this dentist, because he owed the store. So I do remember that.
So there was some
That-
bartering back and forth.
Bartering.
Yeah. Which they're talking about doing again now with the economy the way it is. The cycle
Raise
goes
chickens
around.
and eggs and take them someplace. Mhm.
Gardens are on the upswing.
Yes, they are.
Where did you live in Shenandoah?
On Maple Street.
On Maple Street. North of Nishna Road.
No, the 603.
Oh, okay.
You know where the G's live, and it's about
Mhm.
2 blocks on up from that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So big yard. Did your mother have a garden?
No,
No.
no, we didn't. No,
Mm-mm.
it wasn't like that.
And tell us about school. What you remember about being in school, other than the fact that you felt you didn't realize that some of your
Oh, I
classmates.
realized, but I said I didn't feel it.
Mhm.
I knew that
Mhm.
things were difficult for them.
Mhm.
My grandparents, he was a miller, and this is the first thing, and they never really ever told me. But I think he probably lost his business. They did never say that.
Mm.
So they came to live with us.
Mm.
So that was, there were 3 generations, and I'm
generations.
sure it was difficult for my
Mhm.
mother.
And that was your father's,
No, that was my mother's.
your mother's family. Mm.
And they never told me, but I'm sure that's what it was. I think he probably lost his business and probably lost their home,
Mhm.
so they moved in. And of course, then they were older, and we had no such things as Elm Heights and that sort of thing. You know, there wasn't any place to put them, but to take them in.
Mhm.
I know it was difficult for Mother, and I can remember having school friends come over in the evening, big dances, you know, and that sort of thing. Just, you know, she was terribly upset, the noise, all that sort of thing. It was
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
hard.
But was it kind of a treat for you to have your grandparents around?
Well, she wasn't very well.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't
so,
very well.
oh.
But Mother did have help, so she had somebody that way. But it was, I think, going between the generations.
My mother
Everybody-
said being the sandwich was the worst part.
Yeah. Mhm.
Being
Yeah.
in between generations.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's very hard, so I'm
Oh.
sure it was.
That's hard.
Well, do you have other memories of school, or you enjoyed
Well,
school?
I don't know, they're friends.
Mhm.
We started together, we went all through high school together, and we were friends after we were married and
Mhm.
came back here. So it was a lovely, lovely time, actually, as far
Mhm.
as I was concerned.
Pretty simple time.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you'd people come to your house and you'd dance
Mhm.
and have little parties and things.
Mhm.
Tell us about those. That sounds
Well,
like
you
fun.
know, it wasn't, we had to entertain ourselves. We didn't have, you know, and there was we did have a Candyland,
Mhm.
which was downtown, and everybody went there usually on Sundays or sometimes
Oh,
evening.
okay.
And they had a place to dance up there. It's kind of where that woman that has a beauty shop on, remember, Ward's used to have
Oh, yes.
used to have their catalog place
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And it was right in
Right
there,
there.
had a little place.
On back down from Bank, Iowa,
Mhm.
west of
Yeah.
Bank, Iowa.
Mhm.
No, it was just a fun time. We had lots of fun. We made our own entertainment, and well, I suppose we did some things we probably shouldn't have done too, but
Surely not.
Which you do not have to confess.
I'm sorry to confess that. I really am not very interesting. I'm sorry. I
No,
just
not
don't
at all.
have very much to say.
How about clothing?
Yes.
Styles of clothing in that era.
Well, my mother sewed. I know she made me some clothes. I would
Did
always
she?
make things of what I liked, you know, and have her
Wow.
make them.
Uh-huh.
But as far as buying clothes, we go to Omaha
Uh-huh.
and buy things.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think we just went in and just bought everything that
But
we
they
wanted.
probably had to last.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I never felt embarrassed about my clothes.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And
And
she had something, and I wish I had it. You know.
Yeah, we've laughed because some of the young boys that were doing the filming before school began that was something that they were very interested in, what students wore to school and the fact
Well, I think that is interesting because all our male teachers wore suits and ties, and the boys wore good pants,
trousers.
Dress pants.
and shirts.
Yeah.
The girls wore dresses.
Oh yes, they never wore slacks.
Well, even I had to
Wear
we
dresses,
had to
yeah.
wear dresses to school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a relatively new incantation to do.
Well,
Trousers and
we
jeans.
think it's
and,
new.
well, I mean, yes, excuse me.
Well,
It's
I
rather
think
new.
probably we would look better than we look today.
Well, and my mother, who was a teacher, always said that the attitude of the student was always reflected in what they wore.
Oh, I think anybody.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
I think that's very true.
So when they were dressed down, their attitude was less than
Well, personality
what it should
changes.
be.
Mhm.
Yeah. So did you play with the kids in your neighborhood when you were growing up?
mhm.
And are
Yes,
some of them
and-
still around? Some of those?
I don't think there's anybody in my class. I think they're all gone, and I'm about the only one that's left. I truly.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Of
goodness.
course, there may be some that are living far away that
Elsewhere.
I don't hear from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How many were in your class?
100 and some,
Wow. Okay.
over 100. It was a good sized class.
Mhm.
It is. And who were some of the people that you had grown up with that you came back to Shenandoah and
To live,
to live and
not
were-
many came back there.
Oh, okay.
No, I think maybe the only one is Maribelle.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
She was in your class. Okay. All right. I didn't realize that.
No, I think I'm the only one that came back.
Has-
but this
has
is here.
stuck it out,
anyway,
yeah. Well, what do you remember about the weather? Did you remember the weather affecting you much? The really cold,
Oh yes,
long snowy.
yeah. I can remember Mother taking me many times, but we did walk,
Uh-huh.
and
What's,
nobody
did you
had.
go
We
to-
didn't have
Did
buses
you go to
then.
Forest Park?
I went to Forest Park.
Forest
yes.
Park. Yeah.
And then the old high school.
And then the old high school.
And my fixed school.
Well,
Do you
okay.
remember, Maribelle, you said, maybe you said or maybe you didn't say anything about automobiles. I mean, did anybody in your class have a car? If so, there was probably only a handful of people that had a car.
The
And
farm boys,
farm boys
did
did.
because they drove and they had license. Yeah, my sister had a Model T, which was absolutely wonderful. It's a 4 seats, you know, two. And it was white. It was ivory with green fenders. And on the back was a marimba that was painted.
Oh,
That's what she painted.
my.
And I would stand out at the house when they were getting ready for school, and they piled in, and usually there wasn't a spot for me, so I had to walk to school. But in my class, there were those, you know, the farmers,
So how many
but the
people?
rest of us didn't.
Yeah. How many people did they usually try to cram into these?
As many as they could get.
As many as they
Yeah,
could
as they
get.
could get. Yeah. And I think she took it to several games. And Mother followed in another car to be sure that it got there.
Oh.
You know. I was sitting with Mother. And they watched them go. No, none of us really had big cars,
Mm-hmm.
except our families after we got to the age where we could drive.
Right. So then when somebody, after you were 16 or however old you had to be to get the driver's license, let's say, you know, somebody said, let's go to Candyland, did they all just pass the word around and meet down there, or did they
It was
they
just kind of a
drive
thing we
around and pick
did.
up?
But now that you're talking about it, dating and like in high school, like from juniors on, everybody, they didn't have their own cars, they had their parents' cars.
Okay, they use
Yeah.
them,
So we had transportation.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the weather. In 1934 and 1936, I believe they had the real bad heat waves here.
Yeah,
Nobody
it's
had
hot.
air conditioning in
no,
their home,
no.
so they didn't really realize how hot it was.
I don't know how people withstood it really now that we
Yeah.
have air conditioning.
Isn't that
No.
right?
No. Big fans.
Big fans. slept on the
Sleeping.
porch or
Uh-huh.
something.
Did you
Right.
have a sleeping porch or anything
Mm-hmm.
like
Did
that?
have a sleeping porch.
Yeah.
So we slept out there.
Yeah, everybody slept out
Yeah.
there. They talk about the people that went to the parks and slept in the park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty fascinating stuff. And we had a gentleman last week who told us about going to the Chautauqua
Oh, yes.
ground in Riverton and sleeping there with his grandfather.
Well, there might be some breeze there.
Yeah, it was up on the
that's
hill.
what he said. He
Uh-huh.
said there was a breeze.
But there were
there.
Chautauquas. I remember there.
Do you remember going to those?
Uh-huh. Big tent.
Is that where you got your love of drama?
No.
No.
No. I was pretty little then.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, it's like I can remember the big tents.
Oh, yeah.
Where would those be pitched? I mean,
Well,
that's
there
out
was
of the-
one that I remember going to, which is over where the Central School.
Oh, really?
The school, I don't know whether it was there or not, but anyway, it was over to the side.
Ah.
No, I don't think it was that great. I remember, but I don't know.
I think it was kind of amateur, wasn't it?
Kind of like the Toby players or something that we used to have back, that went around.
Well,
Did you go
somebody,
to movies?
Oh, yes.
Like a particular day of the week, Saturdays
The
or
weekends.
Sundays?
Uh-huh.
Weekends.
And then early on, the Saturday afternoon was a matinee,
Mm-hmm.
and it was always leaving the lady on the crossroads of the train coming down the way.
Those
And Tom
cereals.
Mix
Cereal.
and Tom Mix and that. Yeah, it was a
Cereal. To be continued next
and,
week or
and
something,
a
yeah.
friend of mine's father played the piano.
Oh,
So
fun.
when it was really bad, it was going fast like this. And,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Which
May-
theaters do you
Mayfair?
remember going to? Like Mayfair Theater? Was that the
But yes, in high school.
That was- the snazziest theater in town?
Yeah.
Was it? I'll bet it was, yeah.
But there was the Empress and the Zenith, which
Mhm.
was on the main street.
Which is where,
In fact, it's in practically the same place that we now
okay,
have.
the Legacy, yes, okay.
Yeah.
They call that the Zenith.
Zenith
It was a Zenith, two, honey, two.
Uh-huh.
Zenith and Empress.
and the Empress. Oh, there were two theaters right
two
there.
theaters. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
So it's gone full circle almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess if it's built that way,
Mhm.
it works.
Yes, exactly.
Well, there was another building, I think, in between them, so they weren't right next
Oh,
to each other.
okay.
Very close.
Did you eat lunch at school, or did your mother make your lunch?
No, we went home for lunch.
Oh, you went home for
Mhm.
lunch. Of course, you were really close, so you went home.
Well, I wouldn't
Not
say it was
for high
terribly
school.
close.
Well, I guess not
No.
awfully close, but
Uh-uh.
I think everybody did in those
Not
days.
everyone
They
went home.
I think they had longer than 24 minutes is why.
Oh, yeah, then an hour, I suppose.
I think
didn't
an hour, because we had to walk and then
Yeah.
walk back,
Right.
unless your parents
Mhm.
took you.
So your mom was just there all the time.
Mhm.
She was
Yes,
she was
Yes,
taking
ma'am.
care. She was the household management.
that's right.
When did she finally get into business then?
After my
After
father
your father
died, he
died?
died when he was just 60.
Oh,
and
okay.
she had the drugstore.
Uh-huh.
And then she sold it to Mr. Leacock's.
Okay.
And then she bought the furniture
Furniture store. Okay, because I only knew her as
Yeah.
as the Mrs. B of Shenandoah.
Nice way to put it.
Well, what's your sister's name?
Eloise.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I knew that.
She was a
How
good
much-
friend of your mother's.
Yeah,
How much
yeah.
older than you
Sullivan,
was
Eloise
Four and a
Sullivan.
half.
4.5. Okay.
She was old.
So,
Mhm.
so was she? Were you
Okay.
just the painful little sister, or did she mind taking you along?
I
There were probably times.
I don't remember never taking me really. We became very good friends.
Did you?
Yes,
Oh.
very good
Uh
friends.
huh.
But there was just that. You see, she
There's
was
a-
in high school. I wasn't. I was,
Mm-hmm.
and then she went to college, and I was in high school. But then after that, we
Things
were very
kind of
close.
even out,
Yes.
don't they? My sister and I are
Yeah.
5 years, and
Very
I
close,
understand
yeah.
that exactly.
In
Yeah.
fact, we had our babies 4 days apart.
Oh, I didn't realize it was
So
that.
we were quite close.
Yes, you were.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Were you aware of any politics in those days that was going on? You know, there were the world in the 1930s was it was changing dramatically.
It was, and yes, I do remember my mother and father were quite political in the conversation. And then two of my friends, Bill Snyder and Gray Carpenter, were and we used to gather at the house and talk with Mother. I remember Bill Schneider still, well, he's gone now, but had this great affection for my mother. She was a Democrat and he was a Republican, and they really had lots and lots of good conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was perhaps maybe local politics, anything.
No, it was
the
National,
world
national,
stage.
yeah.
Okay. Were they?
Because, you know, FDR came in pretty soon after that. Hoover.
Was your dad
Right.
a Democrat as well? Okay, so there was no conflict
No,
there.
no conflict there. Yes.
Did you listen to
The radio.
the radio? Well, of course you did. But I mean, did they ever talk about what was going on in Europe and what was going on? And
Don't remember that so much.
remember that so much, no.
See, the war was over when I came along, and I know that Bob's father was in World War I, but
Really?
my father wasn't. And but I remembered not so much the international, but it was just mostly what goes on here.
right.
A lot of these countries I'd never heard of that we today, you know, they were not heard of then. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
other than geography classes.
The world was quite isolated from each other
Right.
in those days.
Was your mother involved in politics at all, or just interested,
Just
in,
interested,
and very
yeah,
opinionated and vocal
yeah,
about it and involved that way? I just didn't know whether women were so much involved in that sort of thing.
Probably not as much
Probably
today,
not
but
as
some
much.
were.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was a lot of upheaval, social upheaval in this country too. Violent strikes and so on.
Right, there were.
Um,
And there's many people that were were out of jobs.
Right.
It's going.
Yeah.
Don't we talk amongst yourselves is how it goes.
And we don't have to worry about this. Since this is all digital, the boys, our wonderful boys, can snip out things,
Or
and
you can't turn it off.
We don't
I
have
thought
to-
maybe you
Oh,
could.
she
No,
can.
I can,
Yeah,
but
she
but
can.
they'll just
But they'll just edit
Take it
that.
out.
That's fine,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
comes and goes, and I don't want to whisper it right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
A lot of people we've spoken to said that you know, the radio and communications were not like they are today, of course, and so
No.
they weren't really aware or too concerned about what was going on in Chicago or Detroit or New York.
much
or
less London and
Yeah,
Yeah, not,
Berlin.
Berlin, so on and so forth. So
no,
they
no.
they just had enough
Well,
struggle
they didn't
going
have,
on.
they wouldn't be able to hear about it, you know, fast enough. Like we today, we know exactly what's going on today, what's happened.
Absolutely,
And
instantly.
we would have to wait then, and they'd have to, the news wasn't great then.
Mhm.
There were many programs I can remember sitting in my father's lap at friends' house, and the other child would be, they'd have their own child on the line, listening to the radio, you know. I don't know what they were, but little, I guess they were, I can't remember what
There
they were,
again,
but
they were
there were two
serials.
black men, I shouldn't say that, that Amos and
That's
Andy
right.
was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And they loved to listen to that whenever it
Mhm.
was on. I remember that. I don't remember really listening to the radio very much except music.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember listening to newscasters.
Not even those serial programs too much.
Oh yes, no.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I did some of those in New York.
Well, it was probably different with your extended family in the house.
Yes.
You know, it was that'd have to be kind of
It was
difficult to
different.
learn. You know, how far, who has control, who has the authority, and
Mhm.
you know that sort of
Mhm.
thing. I mean, that's kind of a sort out thing,
True. True. Very
probably.
Yeah.
So I can sympathize with your mother about that. That would be a hard thing to try to do.
Yes, it
No,
would
I
be.
think as far as my life was concerned, that was just involved what was here
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and going to maybe college. You know. That was.
Where did you go to college?
I went to girls' school in Missouri,
Oh, did you go to Stevens?
Columbia, which is now co-ed,
Okay,
and then I went to New York,
okay.
and
Did you do 2 years at the
no, I only went
1 year?
1 year, and then I went to New York.
Mm-hmm. So you lived in New York in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I had very wealthy friends,
Uh-huh.
which helps.
It's the only way to go,
That's the
right?
only way to
Oh,
go.
yeah.
So you don't miss anything. Yeah.
And you had connected with them from school, or
Met there.
Met them there. Oh, okay. Through the theater. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to school.
Oh, you were going to school?
Yes,
Oh.
drama school.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to Columbia University.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then I did radio work, and
Uh-huh.
from there on
Uh-huh.
into the theater.
Yeah. Well, it had to be a very interesting time to be
It
there.
was. It was.
Yeah, yeah. What's your most outstanding memory about? Did you go somewhere and see a celebrity that you were surprised about, or perhaps
Celebrities
you saw
were
celebrities?
celebrities
around
were
and about?
everywhere. You mean you ran it, but you know, with the work I was doing, you won. And the thing that I truly remember was, of course, I took the train back and forth, and the club car was a wonderful place to be. And
It is.
yeah, and there were always stars from
From
Hollywood
New
that
York.
were going, like Robert
Oh.
Montgomery, and Tyrone Power was on. And I remember sitting back there, and it was quite fun, you know, when all these enter into conversation.
And I'll bet they
like
were
that.
just delighted to have you.
Oh, yes.
Well, sitting back there,
Yeah.
eavesdropping on their conversation.
Mhm.
Well, but it wasn't really. They were talking,
No,
and
I
that's
mean-
it, you know, because it wasn't that big a place.
Sure, sure. How fun.
And no entourage shielding them from
No.
the public.
Yeah, very different from the way it is today. Did you make the trip very often? Back and forth?
Well, no, I
No.
would go in and come home, like, you know, with
For a
maybe
holiday.
Christmas and things
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah,
No, I wasn't tooting back and forth very much.
yeah.
Now, traveling on the train was different than how we traveled today. Of course, we fly, but the railroads there were many of them along the route there. Did you change trains?
No.
You never had to change trains?
No.
And where did you get on the train?
And Red Oak.
Red Oak, okay. So you took the Burlington all the way to New York?
Mhm.
Oh, didn't know that.
All the way.
Yeah. Well, that was
What part
nice.
of New York did you live in? Did you live in a certain area all the time, or?
Well, I
did
was
you
in
live
57th Street. Does that mean anything to you?
Uh-huh.
Which is a lovely street.
Yeah.
And then I had an apartment with friends up at 72nd in Riverside.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Wow.
nice too.
Yeah.
Good view, I believe.
Yeah, nice place. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, did you enjoy that time?
loved it.
You loved it. And tell us a little bit about your radio work. I knew that I thought you'd been on the stage.
Well, that was
You
at
did
that time too, and then I did summer theater
Oh, okay.
in upstate New York
Uh-huh.
and Connecticut,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
and traveled with a Shakespeare company for
Okay.
a season.
Not quite like the Chautauqua.
No. Wasn't like that.
And so when did you come back?
Well, I had an accident. This thing is this in here? And I should have put this.
Oh,
in
no,
there.
you're fine.
Oh, it doesn't, no, it isn't.
Fell down into the orchestra pit.
Oh.
We were breaking for lunch. I don't know what happened, and we were doing private lives, and they had asked us to go on. We did it in Hartford and hither and thither, and then I got mono, and between that and falling, I just was kind of a mess. So I came home. I had to come home. So that ended my thing.
Oh. And that's when you found Robert?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or Robert found you, which
I don't know, we found each other.
Uh-huh.
But I was due back in New York on the first day when we were married.
Ah.
For rehearsal, but I didn't make it.
Those things always happen for a reason, don't they?
I guess.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
certainly do. How
Well,
interesting.
that is very interesting.
Was there anything else that
Honey,
you...
as I told you, I really don't have very much to tell you.
Oh,
I
I
wish I
think-
did, but I just really can't
I
think
think it's
of
been
anything
delightful.
to tell you.
I think
I
it's been...
love your picture, though, of your sister in her car and you forlornly standing on the,
Yes.
waiting to be included.
Well, I'll bet you were the last one to get a space.
I was. I was thrilled to death when I got on. While they came from all over the neighborhood and the way they went.
Oh, how cute. That is a great story. That's a great
But I didn't ever get one. had that Model T.
Really?
Mm.
That's not fair.
Everybody won Model Ts.
Did she take it off to school?
No,
No.
no. But I don't know, there's something about them, and it was
They
really
called
cute.
them jalopies, didn't they?
What, honey?
They called them jalopies.
I guess
and
they did. That people that really had them as their own
Mhm.
car, family
Yeah.
car. Yeah, I think they did.
Mhm.
Jalopies.
And they painted stuff on them, and
Yes,
oh yeah.
she played the marimba, and so that's why the marimba
Oh,
was on
Oh.
fun. I thought that must be the case when you
Mhm.
said that. Oh, that's
They
just
wouldn't just put it on. They don't really like it.
arbitrarily set that design.
Uh,
Yeah.
so this car didn't have a top, did it?
No.
Okay, so they in the wintertime they drove
Hmm.
no top.
It would have had, I think that particular kind of had one that was kind of like,
Snapped on or rolled up.
well, or something, or that would, like hinges or something. What am I
Uh-huh.
trying to say?
Mhm.
Yeah, it collapsed. It folded down.
Folded
into-
down and they're kind of
brace
rods
work.
through
Yeah.
it. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I suppose that they did, some of them had that side curtains or whatever you
Sure.
call them.
But nobody complained.
Oh, no, they shouldn't
It was a
find that.
ride.
Mhm.
It was a
Well,
ride.
besides that, when you're that age, you never get cold.
No.
Isn't
Yeah.
that true?
That's fascinating.
Well, I can't really think of anything terribly interesting. If I would think of it tonight, I wish I had told you this or that, but right now I don't think that.
You know, those Model Ts they rode very high off the ground, didn't they?
Some of them did, but this was not. This
Oh,
was
okay.
one that was more lower.
A sports model, maybe.
Well, no,
Oh.
there was a Model T and then there was something else. I can't remember the name of it.
Mm. They could go just about anywhere, couldn't they? Those Model Ts.
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
She didn't get to
I
go.
don't
I was
know.
gonna say,
Well, no, that's right, that's right.
We're not gonna go. We're not gonna get involved in that.
Well, how many? The streets in Shenandoah were brick
We're
at
all
that time.
we're all brick.
Oh, no, honey, they
Also?
were paved.
Oh, they were
Oh,
brick.
yeah.
They were
Okay.
A few were brick, yes.
Okay, like Clarinda.
Uh-huh. And I
Okay.
think Elm was down.
There in front of the library, I know it was
Uh-huh,
with
was
bricks
brick.
underneath it.
Uh-huh. But the rest of them
It was paved. Okay.
Mm. Okay. So they didn't
They didn't have to go. Boom, boom,
they
boom,
didn't
boom,
have
boom.
to ride around in mud roads, dirt
Dodging.
roads, nothing like that in town.
Oh, I'm sure there were some
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So if
Like
it rained,
down
it was
further that way, or maybe up in the east part of town.
east end, yeah.
Then
Did
I don't, was it up this
Didn't go
way?
down.
Did a lot of your classmates, when they came in from country school, did they stay in town or did they commute back and forth daily?
Well, I think some did, but now that you mention that, I know that there were some, like my friend that lived around the corner from me had quite a few cousins who went to school here, and they would stay at the house.
So
And I think Elaine Snyder, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I think she stayed in.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, different way of going to school than.
Esther Williams did too.
Did she stay in town?
She stayed
I
at
think I've heard somebody say that too.
I think it was Mrs. Paul Ferguson arranged for her to,
Really?
or somebody to
Uh-huh.
be a
place
boarder.
to stay.
Yes, that's what they call them,
Yeah.
boarders. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because Norwich was quite a ways away.
Yes.
And no school buses.
Right.
And
Now
I can
it's-
remember some.
Go ahead.
Well, this chap, I can't remember his name, but I think he was in my sister's class, and he lived out near Porter's Lake,
Mm-hmm.
and he walked to school every day, and on the railroad track.
Oh yes.
I can remember his telling some of them about it. No matter what the weather was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they didn't call school off
No, not
very
then.
frequently,
Unless it's icy or something, but nothing. No.
or blizzard.
Mhm.
And did you? I mean, we've had this discussion in the past in other interviews about hobos.
Oh,
Did
yes.
your family run across hobos? Did they come to your house?
Well, you could tell.
Uh-huh.
They used to put, like with chalk, I don't know what markings. I
Mhm.
can remember finding one out in front of my house.
Really?
And it was, as I understand, it was a good place to stop.
Ah.
You'd get something to eat.
So your mother was generous that
I
way.
guess she must have
Yeah.
been.
You don't remember it. any being
I don't
there.
remember seeing them. I
Yeah.
remember that they were around.
Around.
Yeah.
Really. And something else that I learned about that I didn't know about from Shenandoah's history was the peony
Oh, yes. Fields?
peony day, or
Yeah, I was a peony queen once.
you were.
Yes, I was.
Oh, well, tell us about that.
I just was a peony queen. I don't know how I got there. But I can remember my mother had a picture of me holding peonies and looking down.
Yeah.
Oh, how dramatic! Huh?
Yeah, terribly dramatic.
Well, tell us about your dress for the
How
peony.
funny.
It
It must have been in May.
It
I
must have
don't
been June. The
remember.
peonies were blooming.
Yes, but
It
I
was-
don't
it
remember
was-
the dress.
Oh, really?
No,
Oh,
I don't
no.
remember that.
And was there a long celebration that went along with this, or just a day long, or?
Oh, I think it was just a day probably.
day.
We probably had things downtown. I
Uh-huh.
just don't really remember it. I do know it was quite, of course the gardens were gorgeous.
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
sure.
out on Nishna
Yeah.
Road full of peonies.
Oh, out on Mission Road. Okay, yeah. And so, did you learn the Queen Wave, and you were in a? Did they have a parade or?
I don't remember
contest?
being in a parade. no.
Okay,
I don't think.
contest?
I think I was just up on stage. I remember being that much and the picture, but I don't think there was a great deal of
Was
stuff.
this organized by KMA or KFNF?
Probably was
Or
one of
Mays,
them because they
yeah.
were the ones who had the gardens.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Would that have been when you were in high school somewhere? I suppose, junior or senior.
No, I don't think I was probably that older. I would have remembered about it.
Okay.
I'd probably maybe a sophomore or something.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other candidates for Queen.
Must have been. I'm sorry, but that's just kind of something that is back there, and I don't remember too well. But that
Wasn't that
didn't impress me terribly.
yeah.
Well, I hadn't heard of it, and I knew that there were peony fields, but I didn't realize that which is only logical, if they'd center a celebration around and get those people to town.
Yeah.
There were probably a lot of people that came
Of course,
to
they
town.
did. The Mays and Fields had wonderful big celebrations.
Celebrations.
People came from everywhere,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thousands of people.
in thousands.
so
Mhm.
that was the fall one, right? So we have Shenfest now.
The Harvest Days or
Oh,
whatever they
Harvest
call them.
Days,
I don't know.
Thousands of days.
Well, and they
Well-
were political too, because they would have
Well, it always has speakers.
political candidates
Oh,
come.
yes.
and- Yeah.
Truman came through, and
Mhm.
I can't remember.
Those men knew how to market,
Mhm.
so I'm sure they
Yes.
had all kinds of festivals.
Definitely, I think what it was about. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Interesting.
I wonder how many others they had that we haven't found out about yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe those will show up. Well, it's been very nice of you to let us
I
come
think
and
it's been
chat.
pretty dull, actually.
Well,
Just
I-
sort of,
You know what? Sometimes I
say.
think our own histories seem rather dull to us.
Yes, they
But,
do, and you don't.
overthinking
Some things you just kind of.
Oh, sure.
well, we're very selective in our memory, aren't we?
I
A
guess
lot
we
of
are.
times. I think I know I am. My family tells me that I am.
You just want to remember what you please.
I guess so.
I can't remember anything, according to my family.
Have they interviewed you?
No.
Not
the old
quite.
man or something? What you call him when he came in?
Maybe
Something.
they should.
Well, he does. I don't know. Roger remembers a lot of things just by virtue of either
Hearing
visiting
it.
with his dad,
Mhm.
or visiting with Howard Driftmeyer, or visiting with
Which would be
all those
wonderful to
farmers that
remember.
came
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
elevator, because they all had great
Yes.
stories about, things.
Yeah, I'm
and-
sure they do, and I just don't have very many interesting stories. It's kind
Well,
of dull
I
and-
was very interested in your family history, because I just didn't know exactly, and that's just a different aspect, taking, another generation in, which just isn't done anymore. You just don't do that.
Too
So-
bad. The thing that's really sad is that when your parents are here and your grandparents and you don't listen to them.
Oh, isn't it true?
And I think, oh, mother would have known this, but
Mhm.
Yeah,
I do
and
that
I'm
all
sure
the-
she's told me many things and I just didn't listen.
I know.
And my grandparents.
Well,
Another-
when you're
go
that
ahead.
age, you just don't.
Another thing that I'd been told by people that lived during that time was that even if they didn't have, like, kids went to school and they didn't have nice clothes to wear, they tried to clean them up as best they could because they were proud.
Right.
They wanted to look nice. They wanted to make a good impression. and a good presentation, and they strive to always go out in public looking their best. Whether it's going
Which
to
is
school
wonderful.
or even the ladies going to the grocery store. And I can remember myself, you know, going to the grocery store, and every, you know, middle-aged or older woman that you saw, they wore high-heel shoes to shop at the grocery store.
Roger's always been into the high-heeled shoes. He
Well,
says,
I mean,
you know, women always wore heeled
they,
shoes.
Yeah.
they all did.
Yeah, we did.
Well, his
Or if they couldn't
grandmother
wear
wore 'em
high-heeled
until
shoes,
they took them away from her. So it was
Yeah,
just
and they,
part of
People
your
dressed.
yeah.
And it's too bad they don't do it anymore.
No,
oh yeah.
it's even like we've talked about. So many of the people who remember their parents from the 30s say their mother always wore a dress. She almost always
Yeah.
wore an apron. Well, she
Yeah.
wore a
Oh,
dress
yeah,
to
dress.
work around town,
Yeah.
around the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that's just the difference in the way things.
And look at
are
us sitting here now. All of us with
Oh,
you don't.
every one of us,
Mhm.
except Janine has on trousers. Janine always has a dress on. Well,
I've
yeah,
seen
I mean,
them
I think that's very interesting. You know, I just think
It's
that's,
very interesting.
yeah,
Yes.
how styles have changed and what's important in style.
I don't see it turning around too soon.
Oh, I don't think so.
I do think aren't they more critical of their dress now in high school? Like the boys with their jeans low and the girls wearing.
I think there are
I
some
don't know.
rules.
I don't.
You don't think so? I thought
I don't.
they had to.
Well, it just got so out of hand
Yeah.
that some of the teachers and school board members they were aghast at the way they came to
Well,
school.
I am too when I see
Yeah.
them go by.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really.
There are times at the library
You
that I
probably
wish
see a
they
lot.
wouldn't
Yeah.
bend over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Somebody told me that. I don't know whether it was Anna that works here that they were being a little more, about the dress,
Strict
being a little
about
more critical of what.
Well, I
they
think
wore,
the
so-
tube tops are out, so that helps immensely.
That is good.
But it's the low slung jeans and pants that are
Mhm.
still a problem.
Still a problem.
Yeah.
When my sister was in high school, Maribelle, you remember my sister?
Oh, of course I do.
She went to school one day wearing a skirt, and it wasn't a long skirt, but she was also wearing knee socks, and her knee was showing. Her knees were showing. And,
She got sent home?
yep, L.A. Logan sent her home.
He did really.
Yeah, he sent her home. He says, you get home and wear something to cover up those
The
knees.
daughter whose mother ran the 17 shop.
Well, Logan didn't,
Oh.
I think he
We-
sent her home in the morning. He saw her in the morning, and you go right home and change clothes.
Oh my.
Well,
So,
because we had to kneel on the floor
Yeah.
and make sure that our skirts touched the floor, so we probably could see a bit of me by the time I was in high
well,
school.
Jane probably.
She was just pushing the
Hunt,
limit.
scrunched
She probably
down.
got it at the 17 shop.
Exactly, and it was-
latest thing.
It was the latest thing.
And
Exactly.
Larry just didn't happen to get
He
that
wasn't.
one.
He didn't look at 17 magazine.
I don't think so.
He was no nonsense.
Well, see, that's
No.
what I wondered if you had magazines for the styles.
Oh,
How
yes.
did they? Okay,
Mhm.
Oh, Vogue was
Yeah.
very
Oh.
popular.
okay.
Trying to think of another magazine from that time.
Well, I'm sure the
Fashion
newspapers would
Vogue.
have the ads and things in.
Oh yes.
No, not
So when you
that.
went to Omaha, was it Brandeis?
Oh yes.
Primarily.
Brandeis. You could just stay there and
And
get everything you know.
Kilpatrick's. And Kilpatrick's? Was it
Kilpatrick's, yes.
downtown still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
Those two were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were some little shops, but
Uh-huh.
they were the main.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That shoe mezzanine in Brandeis. Do you remember when the shoes were up on this little mezzanine that looked over the main floor? That's what I remember when I
No,
was
the
in
shoes
high
were
school.
And then there was a shoe shop across the street.
The
from
bootery,
Brandeis.
something bootery, wasn't it, or something like that?
I can't remember the name,
can't-
but they had gorgeous things.
Yeah.
People loved their shoes. They spent hours in the shoes.
Oh,
Like
well,
shoes.
it was a treat to go to Brandeis. It just was.
Well, you could do everything there.
You
could
could.
lunch,
Yeah.
you could
And eat lunch,
tea, but-
exactly.
Mhm.
and all the different. What they had, little shops for buttons and all
Oh,
kinds
yes,
of things. I mean,
notions.
it's
And the books,
everything.
and the bookstore.
The bookstore.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that is fun, isn't it?
On that thing.
Yeah. Well, and then truly, I mean, I even remember the windows at Christmas time
Mm-hmm.
being
But you do remember
a
Santa
sight
Claus there?
to see.
On the
I
top
don't
floor,
remember
he was
Santa
always
Claus.
there too.
Maybe you weren't allowed to go see him.
Maybe I didn't get the Oh, no wonder I never got anything I wanted.
That's it.
Oh dear. Well,
We took Robin and Julie, I remember, and then going from one place to another, there was always another Santa Claus.
oh,
And
you
you
had
had
to
to wonder,
and
you
you
know,
had to
where,
explain.
just who is. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he doing here?
Yeah.
He-
Do
he
you remember
came
the
over here.
Santa Claus here?
Oh yes.
What was his name?
Well, Earl Berglund was one for a while.
Yeah. Well, this
that's
was
when,
way back.
when our kids were
Oh.
little.
When I was little,
Uh-huh.
they had one that used to come to the Presbyterian Church.
And he had
And-
very bad grammar.
Well, I don't know, but he would cartwheel down the aisle.
No, I don't remember that. That's pretty good.
Well, you know that aisle in that church isn't very wide.
No.
That's pretty memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean it was
He
just.
was very agile, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean he had to be good.
Did
because,
you ever know who it was, Roger?
Well, C.W. Fishbaugh knew who it was.
Oh.
Oh,
and
I'm
he-
trying to think of this man's name. He was around here for years and years and years, and
And he always,
he was always a Santa Claus.
he was always.
But he always had really bad grammar.
Not the best example.
No.
for children.